Colonel Burch, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Looking for an update on the ministry.
I didn't have an opportunity during the budget session to cover some of the topics that we were able to fund for this financial year. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to do so today. Let me just start by saying that, I'm quite pleased that we, as a ministry, led the government. I probably can get in trouble for that from my colleagues, but the fact of the matter is it's true. We led the government in terms of meeting the cash limits that were set by the Minister of Finance. And we did that collaboratively. That's how we, as a ministry, operate. All of the heads got in the room and we recognized what funds we were actually allocated for this fiscal year, and that those cash limits were not going to increase. And so we said we're going to go about figuring out how we can meet our mandate across the ministry and stay within the cash limits that the Minister of Finance set. What we also did this year was to reduce the amount of the capital expenditures for this year. I mean, that's based not on any great mystery other than looking at what we can historically actually spend in a given year and funding that, as opposed to funding all singing and all dancing of our wish list and paying interest on money that we borrow for capital expenditure and not spending it. That just doesn't make any economic sense. Now, I know that sounds strange to some people because the PLP has no sense of economic and fiscal responsibility. But I can tell you that in a very real way, that is precisely how we approach it. In my own case, I look at it, and most people in this ministry know that every penny that we spend, some portion, 166,000 of that is mine because I pay taxes. And so it's everybody else's. And so we view it in that context. I will also say that I'm very pleased that this year you normally have in government March Madness spending. And what that means is that you budgeted last year $10, and up until the beginning of March you only spend $8, and so you figure, and by almost custom and practice, if you don't use it, you lose it. So they spend the $2 on anything they can just to say, I met my budgetary projections. I take significant offense at that because I think that in many cases is a waste of money because you just spend it willy-nilly. What we did was to look at some of the restrictions that we would have in this current fiscal year and see if we could not cover them in the previous year. But we still ended up under budget, and so that money went back to the Treasury. I think that it's fair to say that the Minister of Finance does not subscribe to the view, use it or lose it, because that's just not a practical way of doing things. His view is, and this is our experience with both the immediate predecessor and the current Minister of Finance, that if you can justify carrying over funds for the next year, then he's willing to accept that. And I'll give a practical example of how that works. In some cases, because of the nature of the work that the public works gets involved in, a project may exist over 2 financial years. So in other words, whilst the project may cost you $10 million, you may only spend 2 in 1 year getting up and running until you get really going, and the other 8's going to come in the next financial year. So you're not over budget, you're not bad projecting. What you're doing is providing the actual cash at the point that you use it. So you spend less on interest if it in fact is money that you're actually borrowing. And I'll give you a practical example again. King's Wharf as an example. We had a limited window to completely rebuild that wharf. At the end of the cruise ship season last year in October, and yesterday is when the first cruise ship came. And so you have a finite period, and I am so pleased at the work that a number of Bermudians did, and others, but primarily led by Bermudians in terms of managing and executing that exercise, that you have people who started from day one. They knew that April 10th was drop their date. That ship's coming up the channel. And if it don't have a King's Wharf to dock at, we would be, as a government, be subjected to significant penalties if the ship had to go to anchor or something else. And so we knew we had a deadline. And even though during the course of that period, since the start of this exercise, and we have some challenges. If you're going to build something like this size, you expect that there are going to be bumps in the road. What I'm pleased to report is that those who were in charge of this exercise, they overcame all of those. And they had a plan A, they had a plan B, they had a plan C, they had a plan D. And then the chief also had a nuclear option plan if we were getting close and needed to do some things in order to be able to meet this deadline. So I'm quite pleased that we did that. But not only did we do it, we did it in a number of ways. And I think Bermudians need to understand that, you know, there have been some significant contributions to the infrastructure of this country that have never happened before. In the case of King's Wharf, people may be surprised to learn, even though this is not the first time that I'm saying it, the entire wharf was precast in New Jersey and shipped to Bermuda. The entire wharf. And so it was like Lego pieces, never done before here. And what that allowed us to accomplish was a number of things. One, you can increase the integrity of the concrete overseas. Two, you could start building the wharf before the end of the cruise ship season. And so in your timeline, you know, you're not starting at, it's called prior preparation and planning. You would know that, having once been a soldier. And so no one in this exercise had ever done that before, not the chief, not Carmen Trott, who was responsible for this whole exercise, or Christian Construction, who were the contractors for this. And so everybody was on a learning curve. And, I mean, it just really was an exercise in everybody who sat back, myself, the PS, and those of us who were on the ground and involved. We got daily photographic reports of where we were at in that progress. And, I mean, and you could see, color-coded and everything, where we were going. And we had several visits up there to see how they were progressing and how they were working together. And it really was an exercise in collaboration and coordination and team spirit and Bermudian expertise in the main. Even though we had outside support and help, it was led by Bermudians, and young Bermudians at that. And so the life expectancy of the pier, because King's Wharf is 20 years, slightly over 20 years old. The life expectancy of this wharf that was open yesterday is 75 years. And that's attributable to technology advancing and various other things that you put in place. But that's a significant accomplishment and achievement and a planning. And let me just say the other thing too, because this will be a question that on time, obviously, because the ship came up the channel, and we were on King's Wharf yesterday morning, and she was motoring, and we were saying, well, we're ready. We'll see if she holds up, and she held up. And by noonday yesterday, the captain and his team of the Carnival cruise ship had given the thumbs up not only to the pier, to the security, and all of the provisions that are provided, even though there's still construction going on. Because obviously you can't build a building if you finish the pier on the first and your cruise ship's coming on the first. So we have a temporary structure which we plan for that has all of the normal facilities that you have at a cruise port, customs and security and what have you. And we're constructing the permanent terminal whilst the season continues. And so tourists will come, and we've signposted and called North the area that we're doing construction work under. And it really is an exercise. And I encourage Bermudians to go and really have a look-see at the work and quality of work that has been delivered by Bermudians in the main. And we are very pleased. Let me also put down a marker that, first of all, on time and on budget. And in fact, probably we got some bonuses out of this as well, in terms of within the figure. I think $17 million was a figure that we budgeted for King's Wharf at the outset. even with a small amount of contingency in that, and we're still on budget, even though we've had some changes along the way. You know, your life experience is that, you know, you need to, as I won't bother. It's too long a story to give you about one aspect of it where we went and addressed the problem. But one of the great really sense of pride that we who are not directly involved in this exercise have in our people who done this is the fact that they had a can-do attitude. There never was, oh, this mountain is too high to climb. There was always collaboration and coordination at every level to figure out how we getting over this. Because we had some periods of bad weather, and we would get a daily report. We're behind schedule by 2 weeks. We're behind schedule by 3 days. You're on target, you know. But and so you test and adjust what you're doing to deal with the elements that you're facing. And so I mean, it really is an exercise that makes those of us that are from afar are just watching this and supporting in terms of from the gallery. Really proud of the effort that they made in bringing King's Wharf online. So I really am quite pleased about that. Now, we're not finished, and we'll say that. And I don't want people to think that we missed something out of this, and I want to put down this marker at the very outset. This is phase 1 of King's Wharf. And so what we have done there is to strengthen the integrity of the wharf so it can take the larger cruise ships that are now being built. What we have not been able to accomplish yet, because those larger cruise ships, people will understand, you know, they're longer. And the pier doesn't address the length of those cruise ships in terms of being able to service them, not the integrity of being able to hold them. That we can do now. But we're unable to meet the service doors on those larger cruise ships. And so we will be extending the pier for that aspect of it by about 100 feet on either side. And that can be done during the season if we need to. We're not there yet. We need to tender that and do that sort of work. But I don't want people to think that, you know, we missed the boat and didn't hit our target. This is precisely what we wanted to do, to have a pier that could provide safety and security for any ship that comes to Bermuda and be tied up safely and securely. We're able to manage, and the ship is able to manage getting refuse and all the other stuff off the door by scheduling. But when we extend the pier, they'll be able to do that as a matter of course. So really good work. Really good work. The other aspect of it, the Permanent Secretary has said, because, you know, we the PLP get accused in government to a lesser extent of not being able to manage projects effectively. We're not waiting for an audit. We're not waiting for an audit. In May, when all the dust has settled and all the bills are in and all the bills are paid, we have asked the Auditor General to come and audit us on this project. Everything is in order. And I have no doubt that we will have not one question asked that cannot be answered. And so there won't be any challenges at any stage of the game in terms of this audit. And we're doing that for a number of reasons. One, we want the comfort of doing that, but we will have a number of people that have been involved in this project who will not be in Bermuda during the normal course of audits. So the chief, even though we'll have access to them, and they'll be able to provide whatever information we may need, they'll leave. The chief's contract ends in August, and he'll be leaving us. I think one of the other engineers who was involved will have moved on. And so the key players in this will not be on island. And so from our point of view, we want the comfort and the satisfaction of knowing that nobody can come and point a finger and say, whoops, you made a boo-boo, or whatever the case may be. And so I really am quite pleased at how this whole project has gone. We are going to, as a ministry and as a ministry headquarters, try and organize some means of expressing our appreciation to all the artisans and professionals who participated in this exercise, and it covers the entire landscape of a whole number of things. engineers on island, consultant engineers overseas, the people in New Jersey, Crescent Construction, our people in Public Works, who done asphalting and various other jobs, and just people who all hands on deck. And I guess the last thing that I would say in this regard is that, I was also encouraged, because we have a number of engineers in the ministry that are assigned various tasks, and not all of them were assigned to King's Wharf. But they all, as part of a team, would turn up on weekends on their own time and say, Carmen, give me something to do, in order to make sure that we met the commitment that we made in this project. And then I'll say one more final thing. One of the key players in this was a young female trainee, civil engineer. Probably didn't get the pronunciation wrong because everybody keeps telling me. And I saw this one and I meant to ask her, how do I pronounce your first name? I call her Tabia Butterfield, but I think they say it's Tabia. Anyway, whatever it is, people are going to know who she is, right? Not only are they going to know who she is from what I just said, they're going to know who she is when she qualifies and comes back and makes a difference in this country, in the sense that, she will have had, and we had this conversation this morning, she's had real-world experience that most students don't ever get until after they've qualified. And so she will go back to university in September, and she will have the benefit of having worked on a project that is the first. And no grass growing under her feet. She is really going to make a difference in this country and really going to make her proud. And I hope, and we expect, and I intend to highlight all of these people who I've just mentioned so that people can see living examples of young Bermudians who are doing good things and great things in the area of their chosen field, and hopefully they will inspire other young people that if she could do it, and I know her, but I didn't know that that's what she did. Well, I know her and I didn't know what she did. Well, I know him and I didn't know that. And I can follow in their footsteps too. And I can tell you that their attitude, all of them, is one of, let's go. They will help and they will offer, and they will not be ones to say, I don't have no time to bring along anybody else. And that's one of the other great benefits of this entire exercise. It's all hands on deck. Carmen was in charge, and trust me, those people that know that she is a jovial, friendly, outgoing, gregarious character. But don't mess with her profession, because then you'll see the strict master come out like, safety and see. And it don't matter who you are, I will up there, I'd rather have the proper safety equipment. I'm not coming on her job site. And it really, 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 I wouldn't do that because I won't, I want to poke around and I don't want to have to be reprimanded by somebody junior, justifiably. But I think that, it really, really was just one of the greatest things of doing this job, being able to see young Bermudians excel and meet the deadline, and not afraid and not affected by the naysayers who said you can't do it. Not affected at all. They just pressed on. In fact, on, what's today, Thursday? Tuesday night. Tuesday morning. So the day before, no, Monday morning. With 48 hours to go, they worked 48 hours, nonstop. All hands on deck. All hands on deck. And it really, really is a success story. Okay, enough about King's Wharf. Let me go somewhere else next. We launched in the middle of last month, during budget time, a housing survey on, because I have some challenges with some of the data that we've been getting. I don't think that because we have a limited inventory in terms of housing at the corporation to be able to provide accommodation for families and folk generally, I think that a lot of people have actually lost their hope in our ability to help them. And so, and it's human nature. If I'm not able to give you candy, you're going, and you ask me 3 times, you're just going to stop asking me. If every time I say, do you have a house? Are you able to provide accommodation? If the answer no, I'm going to stop asking you. Because I figure that, it's just never going to change. And so it has been a real challenge to actually come up with accurate data to be able to properly plan. And so we launched the housing survey in in the middle of last month. And I'm so pleased. It goes on until the end of this month, and it's Bermuda affordablehousing.bm. And people can still participate. It's kind of tapered off now, but certainly in the first 24 hours we had, no, that's the, up until the beginning of this month, we had 955 responses. And so what I suspected without data, just my gut feeling, has been confirmed, because we have about 47% of people of that number that feel as if they are inadequately housed. And so what that says to us is that some of those people did give up hope. And so this will allow us to better plan and adjust some of the plans that we have going forward in terms of being able to provide housing. One marker I'll put down, though, and that is I really want folk to think about the adequacy of their housing. Ignore what it costs. Ignore what a 3-bedroom costs if you've got a male child and a female child, because that's adequately housed in our book. That, you know, if you have two-sex children, they should not be housed in a bedroom in the same bedroom. They should have their own. That's what we consider adequately housed. So a family that has male, female child, and parents needs a 3-bedroom at the least. And so I want people to think in terms of the adequacy of it, as opposed to what the going rate on the market today is for a 3-bedroom unit, because that will allow us to better plan for them. Because what we are seeing is that a family in that set of circumstances reckons that I can only afford a 2-bedroom. And so that's what I'm asking for. And from our point of view, we believe that that is creating other problems down the road that we could easily avoid. And the data and the statistics and the research supports that argument, that if you mix races at a young age, you're going to have other challenges, especially, you know, teenagers and hormones bouncing all over the stratosphere. You're going to have challenges. And so what we are attempting to do is to address the needs of families in a practical and realistic and scientific way that tries and puts us and positions us as a community to avoid some of those problems that we're going to have later on. And so that's what I'd like for people to think about if they're going to participate in the survey. Don't think about what they're asking for, 2 or 3-bedroom today. Tell us what it is that will adequately house your family, because that will allow us to better plan and prepare and provide for what it is that the community needs. And so I'm quite encouraged by the results thus far. It does suggest to me, and I'll give you some statistics actually, because we were thinking that it was, you know, in one category, and it seems to be panning out in another. So of the 955 responses, 53% report that they are adequately housed. That's an encouraging number too. 53% of that 955 are telling us that we are adequately housed. That's a good thing, because that's more than 50%. So we got a little bit less difficulty and challenges to cross. 47% report they are not adequately housed. Now, 3.5% of those own their own homes. So it's two different dynamics at play here. But they're also telling us that $300,000 is considered an affordable purchase price for a 1-bedroom unit. They're telling us something else again, because you cannot get that on the market. And I'm probably going to get in trouble again as the minister responsible for housing, because we're going to do something about fixing this. And so the real estate community are going to say, you know, you're pushing on the prices of housing. Well, yeah, I guess I will be. And of course, if what we are also planning in terms of mortgages to bring those rates down, you know, people need to start looking ahead and planning and thinking that maybe now there really is a realistic opportunity for me to earn a piece of the rock, because that's really where we're headed. $400,000 for a 2-bedroom, $500,000 to $700,000 for 3 bedrooms, and most of these families are seeking cheaper accommodation, 30%, 37%. closely followed by needing larger accommodation, 34%, due to crowding of family, followed by others. So we're kind of getting those results, and so I'm encouraged by that. The most seek two-bedroom accommodation, which is encouraging too, because that confirms to some extent where we thought we were heading, because there was three bedrooms some time ago, but we seem to be heading in a different direction. So what that means in practical terms is, because we are planning to build, and so what that means is if we've gone on from 3 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms, that probably means we can provide more accommodation. That's the bottom line, without the sort of additional expense that one would have to do if you were doing 3 bedrooms. So data is what drives what we do, and that's really where we're headed. And we're headed in a realistic way. People will know that I'm impatient by nature and by familial connections too. If they know anybody connected to me, they'll know I'm impatient. I want progress yesterday. Everybody asks me, how much time do I have? Yesterday. What's my deadline. What's my deadline to just about everything. Let me go next to parks. We were advertising recently for activities in parks. There was from the 1st of April to the 31st of October for commercial activity in parks. And we picked every park in the country, and mostly beaches in some cases, except for Shelley Bay, and I'll talk about that separately. And so we had 10 different locations. I was very encouraged with the response that we received from those people who had applied. We had for the 10 locations, we had 35. RFP closed on the 15th of March. We had 35 applications that we received for the 10 locations. They've now been awarded. I know that there's some angst from those people who were unsuccessful, who think that, for a variety of reasons, well, there is a question mark as to why they were turned on. And so we're going to take some steps to address that. Not the least of which, if you have 10 spots and you have 35 applicants, that means you're going to have 25 who are going to be disappointed. Bottom line. And what you want to do is to not duplicate efforts at the various locations. But what I've asked them to do today is to have the 25 unsuccessful participants this year, those that wish, to have them in for a debrief and go through why it is, without saying, you, Dennis, your price was too high, and you, so your price was, but in a general sense, saying, this is the criteria that we use. These are how we grade the various approaches and responses that we've had, and this is how we arrived at the decision of the 10, so that those who were unsuccessful this year can go away with a template to say, okay, I need to sharpen my pencil with my pricing, or I need to do something else in terms of changing what it is that I'm going to provide, because that's already provided there. And in the case of, say, X Beach, you had 10 people that applied to do snowballs. Well, you can't have 10 snowball stands, And so it's providing that information so people are not left out there in the stratosphere trying to figure out, okay, how come I wasn't successful? And providing them with the tools so that they can be successful next year or better able to compete. And so we'll do that. But I was quite encouraged. We've had, I've looked down the list. I don't know many of these people, but I'm pleased with the diversity that, part of this government's mandate is to encourage entrepreneurship. And we've seen it in a real way this year. I do note that there are a couple of locations that are not included on the parks. As an example, Daniel's Head, which falls under BLDC, that had its own program last year, that we're likely to expand this year now that, that property in the main has been taken off of the market for development. and it's been taken off the market for development because we haven't had any real success. And at this stage, and there are other properties that lend themselves better to tourism development properties at the moment. Not to say that it'll stay off the radar forever, but at the moment it's off the radar. And so what we're likely to do this year is to have the same sort of exposure and entrepreneurial opportunities there, similar to what we had last year, Daniel said. And what we are also going to do is to try and, in coordination with the Ministry of Tourism, to take some of the pressure off of Horseshoe Bay, particularly for cruise passengers in the dockyard. So there is collaboration with Redco, who manages the pier and who are close to Daniel's Head, and BLDC, who actually own it, to actually try and not steer them there, but advertise that there are opportunities in terms of beaching opportunities and swimming opportunities other than Horseshoe Bay. So you don't have 4,000 people descending on Horseshoe Bay and some of them getting frustrated because you cannot deliver the quality of service that we should be able to provide here. So I'm quite pleased with the response to the commercial activity in parks, and I would encourage those people that were unsuccessful this year not to see it as a defeat, because one of my children who lost his Nicky Bascom, and he lost his first professional fight. He said to me, and I was so proud of him, "You sometimes learn more from losing than from winning." And because it makes you reassess, check yourself and reassess your position. So I'd ask them to consider and to do that. Let me talk about a couple of other things that have been in the news recently and got slightly distorted in my humble opinion. I know there's chatter about once-a-week garbage collection, and I won't go too far down that road today because we are having a significant roundtable tomorrow morning with all of the key stakeholders in the ministry that are involved in waste management and every aspect of it, about how it is that we're going to move forward in terms of addressing and adding to some of the things that we said we would do in relation to once-a-week garbage collection. I think all of the wheelie bins and recycle bins are on the island now, and so we'll be early next week figuring out. I have an idea in my mind what I'd like to do with them, and I've expressed that, but I haven't had the input from others who are on the ground, and I wish to do that before we decide in what direction we're going to go and how we're going to go live with that. But what I would say is that the research that we are currently being provided with in relation to some of the challenges, particularly that we're having with vermin, is not exclusively tied to, or even in a significant way tied to, garbage collection. There are some other issues involving some other areas of government that we need to have greater collaboration on, and I'm talking specifically about our ability to use, in the case of vector control, that are doing that, and also in the case of some of the activity surrounding some of the farming in the country and some of the activities that we're doing that are exacerbating what is already a bad situation. But rather than go too far out on that limb, we'll collaborate and come with a cohesive response about how it is that we're going to address this. But where I would like to end on God, we need to take some pride in our community and our own country, man. Come on now. I mean, you can't, I don't sit back and say, you come and get my garbage, take it or leave it. First of all, we should have some respect for the people who pick up garbage. Because how many of us in this country would go and do that job? Few of us would go and do that job. And do it as well as they do. I mean, they have a commitment to picking up our garbage that sometimes they get licks from me for, because they're trying to figure out, is that tree gonna match the windshield? No, I'm gonna go up there and get the trash rather than have the complaint, and it matches the windshield. And I'm saying to them, no, don't take that chance. Report on those folks, and we in the administration will deal with it and them about sorting out how they can how they can assist themselves in having their garbage collected. The other thing that no amount of collection is going to ever address, is the total irresponsibility of some of the people in this country that put their garbage out whenever they like. No amount of collection is going to address that. They need to check themselves. And in addition to that, the people in the neighborhood need to check them. You'll be aware that last week, we had an incident at Alexandria Road, and everybody's, complaining about waste management. But yet everybody could confirm for us, and we have video footage, that people were coming down here and live in the area and put it in the garbage. And I'm saying, really? I'm telling you right now, if you're coming in my neighborhood, and I don't have one of those beings, but if you're coming to drop trash in my neighborhood, I'm getting out my phone that has a camera. I know how to use the camera on it, and I'm taking a picture of your license, and I'm pricking on you. Bottom line. Okay? And that's what we need to do. If you have pride in your own neighborhood, and the other thing is that, there's a number that you can call if your garbage isn't collected. We're human. Sometimes there are hiccups. Why would you sit and wait 2 weeks and let it pile up? And then call ABM and say, and beat up on those people. Beat out, you could do that. I mean, I'm not telling you that not to do it, but what I am saying is a better solution to getting what you want, Just dial 1-800-MARSH Folly. And they'll actually come and get your garbage, and you wouldn't have to look at it for 2 weeks if there's been a hiccup in the system. But I can tell you this, and this is not fact. I mean, this is not fiction. This is fact. When I first came to this job after the election, on a daily basis, we had twice a week garbage collection. My inbox was full with people complaining about my garbage hasn't been collected. So much so that you could be around here. It was Tuesday. You knew a half a dozen people, the names you could call. You would ask, did so-and-so call today, so garbage is being collected? Because repeatedly and regularly they would call, because we did not have the equipment in order to be able to service it. And so the unreliability of collection was through the roof. So this is not punishment for anyone. This is practicality. We are able, and we have been able in the last 15 months, since we had once a week garbage collection, on the day we say we're coming for your garbage, in the main, we're coming for your garbage on that day. And you don't even think about it. Because in the morning, you go out, you leave a bag out there, you come home, it's gone. You don't even think that they came and got my garbage today. The only time you think about it, you come home and the bag's still there. And so what I'm saying to you is that it's a cop-out. You say, just go back to twice a week garbage collection. Well, I could do that tomorrow, But I can tell you right now, the same people that are complaining now will be complaining worse then, because I cannot guarantee the reliability of collecting twice a week garbage collection, because we don't have the vehicles, we don't have the equipment, and we don't have the staff. And so tell me what you want. Because you say that we are fiscally irresponsible, we are saving close to $1 million. And yes, we still pay overtime when it's required, but we're not paying overtime on a weekly basis, which is what was happening with twice a week garbage collection, and we still weren't able to deliver. So, I mean, I get it, that we humans don't like change. I get that. But I have a responsibility in this job to try and do things differently and more efficiently, and I will. And no amount of criticism is going to resile me from that. And I was out driving. I was driving from the airport on Tuesday night, and the person driving me said, you want to go Middle Road or you want to go down Collector Street? I said, what, down to my stoplight? They said, sir. I said, yeah, my stoplights. Like, what do you mean? They said, yeah, and most people will have long forgotten the controversy surrounding, when those stoplights went in Collector's Hill, everybody and their mother called me every name but what Alice and George gave me. It ain't gonna work, and blah, blah, blah. And people that weren't even born would not even know that that was a #1 accident spot. It is not now. Everybody accepts that. This is the norm. But there was criticism at the time. And so if you believe that this is going to fix the problem, and you've got the support of all the technical people around you that this is what it's going to, you have to stay the course and take the criticism. Now, I reminded some of those people that criticized me then that, you know, oh, yeah, I criticize me too. Now I drive through and I think this is probably the greatest thesis sliced bread. Anyway, there we are. Last one for you then, maybe. Before I move off of that. So I'm going to publish the numbers yet again for March 40. If your garbage is not collected, don't track down, you know, whomever you want to track down. I mean, you can still do that if that's your thing, because that's what some people like to do. But you want the garbage actually collected, the problem solved, which is the street I live on, solving things, 292-7454. You know, if there's been a hiccup in your garbage being collected, and I'm not saying, you know, we may have people, an inordinate number of people out sick, and so we're going to be, you know, struggling to manage. That's par for the course. But I would challenge anybody in this country, any neighborhood in this country, to step up to the plate and say that in the last 15 months, I can consistently report that my garbage has not been collected on the day you said it's going to be collected. I would challenge them to do that. And I'll bet you cash money that there's nobody that can get up and say that. Now, let me address before they go there the BRCs, the big gray bins, okay? Because we had challenges until we got the new trucks, and so when we got information, we used the corporation of trucks that could lift those bins. And I'll tell you the reason why we had challenges with that, because I saw in a report that I got from Marsh Folly that said to me that we would send the workers out to pick out of the bins, right? So I said to them, I said, what does that mean? They said, they go in the bins and they pick the trash out of the bins. And I said, you are got to be kidding me. And I could not countenance having people who I don't necessarily know and are not necessarily related to me other than they live in my village, talking about they're going to go and pick out of somebody. Really? Especially when I know that some people have no regard for what they put in those bins. No regard whatsoever. And I'm supposed to send another human to go in the bin to pick it up. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And so we came up with other solutions. And what I'm saying to people is that these people that do that are related to us. And if they're not related to you by blood, they're related to you by they live in your neighborhood, or they went to school with your child, or they married your sister. But they're related to us. And that's how I view those people that pick up our garbage at Marsh Folly. They're not some obscure people that, you know, that should be treated like the garbage that they pick up. Absolutely not. And I am not going to be as having this responsibility sit here and allow them to be abused. I'm not doing it. And people could say what they like. They're going to have to get over it. Because there'll be no turning back from that. So if your garbage is not being collected on the day that it's supposed to be, and you want to do something real about it, other than B&M, you know, B and moon, since I'm on my best behavior, 292-7454 or 292-1517, either one of those numbers. And you're not calling up to complain. You're calling up to say, hello, Marsh Folly. You know, I live at X Road, and our garbage wasn't collected today. And they will fix it. They will fix the problem. Nobody's being punished. Nobody's being punished by not picking up your garbage. How does that work? And you know why nobody's being punished? Because the more garbage we burn at Times Bay, the more electricity we generate and the more money the taxpayer makes. Okay? This is, you know, you really? Do people really think I sit behind this desk and sit in this office and just come up with this to... No, man, we're here to try and fix stuff. And that's what we're committed to doing. And last one, and then you can go wherever you like in your notes. I know that there's been... first of all, next year is a significant anniversary for the legislature. And I'm embarrassed that I don't know I want to say 400 years. Am I got that right? Yeah. 400 years of the Bermuda House of Assembly, and we expect and we plan to celebrate that occasion. And so as a result, and the House of Assembly has been on the hit list for renovation and refurbishment for a number of years. And so we've committed to doing that in order to be able to properly celebrate that anniversary. And so what that means is that everybody has to get out of their building. That's what it means. Because the nature of the work is such that you cannot have nobody in the building. Okay? So let me put down a couple of clear markers. First of all, the judiciary have been allowed to, are going to remain until the end of this session, the end of June, okay, in Supreme Court number 1. Well, I mean, let's back up a bit. First of all, I really wish that we as a people who pay taxes, whether we work for the government or not, would take some personal responsibility in that too. The reason why 113 Front Street is closed, the reason why it's closed, in the main is because of bad housekeeping. You know, so you can't point the finger at me and the Minister of Public Works and say, blah, blah, you know. And certainly we are not, we have no intention of grinding the judicial system in this country to a halt because they don't have accommodation. But I can tell you this, the old singing, old dancing $32 million complex ain't happening either. Because that's irresponsible, okay? That's irresponsible. And let me just put down this marker because nobody else seems to be hearing me and when I say this, is that, you know, first of all, I deal in practical terms. I was once a soldier and people say I'm still a soldier. I certainly think like that. And so when you say to somebody like me that there's no court for the appeals court in Bermuda and so therefore the justice is going to grind to a halt, in practical terms, you know what you're talking about? You know what you're asking me to do as the minister responsible for buildings in this country? Is to provide a building with a court and offices for a visiting court of appeal. You know what that means? They come here 4 times a year for 2 weeks. So for 8 weeks of the year, they use a court. Now, I maybe got the numbers wrong, but I know that they come 4 times a year. But so you're asking me to provide you with a court and offices that's going to sit vacant for 44 weeks of the year just so that justice can... You're talking nonsense, okay? Absolute nonsense to me. It's the same as the approach that we've taken with space standards for government. And I know I'm getting pushback from civil servants who think that, I'm entitled. You're entitled to be being provided with the tools to do your job, as we all are. Don't tell me that you're entitled. Really? Go in the private sector and see what they're doing. We went and visited, I won't call their name, I don't have permission to, but one of the top 5 accounting firms in the country. You know what they have? Because this is where I really wanted to go. Lord, if they're upset with me now, they're lucky I didn't get my way, because I wanted to have hot desk. You know what that is? Hot desk means that you do not get assigned a desk. So like I've got pictures on my desk. I take them home tonight, because I may not be sitting here tomorrow. Because think about it, practical. There is not one business in this country where if you have 40 staff, every day of the year you have all 40 staff sitting at their desks. Not one business. Somebody's going to be sick. Somebody's going to be on vacation. Somebody's going to be traveling on business. Somebody's going to child sick. Somebody's going to have an accident. But you are never going to have 100% participation at work. You're never. And so what those businesses are doing, they provide for 80% of the staff that they have on their books. In fact, one of them, the best one of all, you have to book where you're going to sit. Buy an app on your phone. I'm not making this stuff up. And so, you book, you say, okay, I want to sit by the window today. And I mean, it really is state of the art. And that's where we're headed, because we want our minds to be modernized too. I don't want to hear this is the way we've always done it before we had computers, and so this is the way we're still going to do it. No. I mean, it's the same as utilizing the computer system. Does anybody else understand or find it a challenge? And I know that the Minister of Finance has this squarely on his radar, that you come into the government administration building, and the first thing you meet is a bunch of cashiers who are on the same computer system that 20 feet away in social services is another bunch of cashiers taking the same money for the same government, for different resources, and the systems don't talk to one another. Does that make sense in 2019? And I know he has it squarely on his radar, because I know he does. Because it does not make practical or common or economic sense. And if you're going to raise the standard and the bar and everything else, the same as we had at King's Wharf, that type of camaraderie and that type of people giving up their weekends to come and chip in, that's what you need. Because you're going to have job satisfaction. You're going to have camaraderie. You're going to have people that are not going to be watching the clock, that are going to do a job that they actually enjoy. And so therefore, doesn't matter how long it takes. This is what I had set to do today. I'm staying here until it's done. And that's going to permeate all throughout the whole organization. Everybody's going to get the bug. And you're not going to have people saying, 9 to 5, this is what I'm doing. And so that's where we're headed. The other thing that is a significant, that, again, it's going to be an adjustment for the civil service, but we do it in this ministry. And that's this business about every department in government have a boardroom to cater to all my staff, so I can have meetings. and the room sits vacant for 90% of the time because it's mine, and you can't use it. No, man. We're not doing that. We have two in this. We have a training room, and we have a small boardroom in the Ministry of Public Works. And so we're on the 3rd floor. Everybody on this floor has access to those rooms. Everybody in government has access to those rooms. That's our policy. And it's all about scheduling. The secretary asks, I booked the room. I say, is the boardroom vacant for this? No, Minister. And then we go around, we shop around. But you can't, and so the training room is designed for just that. It can be set up for a boardroom, it can be set up for training. We rent it out to the private sector because it's all singing, all dancing. Anybody in government can come and use it. They just have to book it. And that room gets used more than probably any other boardroom or training room in all of government because there's always somebody in there. Always somebody in there utilizing it. And that's what you want, because then you are going to save money, for goodness sakes. Now, my last point, I guess, is we're going to have to get to a stage where we accept in this country that in order to be able to improve our infrastructure, and so let's use schools, we're going to have to knock down some buildings. So all of those people that, I got this sentimental attachment to some piece of, some piece of architecture, some piece of this or something. I'm going to do what the British do. Now, you know how much we love them. And if they do it, it's got to be all okay. I'm going to do exactly what they do. I'm going to take a picture of the building that you love so much, and I'm going to take pictures of the building that you love so much. And then I'm going to knock it down. And I'm going to build a new one. And I'm going to put a plaque and the picture of what was there. And say, what stood here once was this building. And now here's a newer edifice that I have to spend less money on maintaining, that I don't have to hear any complaints about mold, that I don't have to hear any complaints about air quality, that I don't have to spend untold resources in maintaining an asset that all it's going to do is deteriorate. Now, I get that there are some buildings that you're always going to have to do that. the one that sits behind me, the House of Assembly, you're always going to have to do that. That's a significant building in the country. But some of these others, we're going to have to, because we ultimately we're going to save money. You can't have this cycle of, Bermuda stone, dampness, mold, and mildew. This is Bermuda. That comes with the territory. Okay? So you have however old the building is made out of Bermuda stone is leaking. And so every 8 or 9 years, you're going through the same cycle. Completely refurbishing it and it all, and 2 years in, you can see. Because that's the nature of the beast. You haven't done nothing wrong. You haven't abused the place. That's the nature of the animal that we're dealing with. And so in order to be able to say, okay, I could plan this building for next 25 years, so I build a new one. I don't have to go back in there other than paint the roof and do some touch-ups and whatever, but I'm not the major sort of expense that I'm going to get from having it. And so people are going to have to, come to the realization that we're going to have to knock some buildings down, I'll let them know in advance so they could go take their own pictures too. But we'll have some, we'll have nice pictures of them, color. Put them a nice plaque that was there. And then we'll be able to really plan. And I think that, part of where we're headed in terms of as a government is beyond Burch sitting in this office and beyond, even the PLP being in government, though I don't see that happening anytime soon, I don't. Realistically, and no amount of whining and anonymous, sort of writing in that thing that comes out every day, you hide behind num de plumes and talk, they can't do nothing and blah, blah, and everything is our fault, even if it rains too much, it's our fault, No amount of that's going to change the reality that, you people are in a shambles, and you ain't coming back. You ain't coming back anytime soon. And we are determined to make sure that, we do what we're supposed to do for the people of this country, not just for anything else. And so, and so we are planning long term in terms of being able to provide for the people of this country something that they and their children can be. Those people that are up at King's Wharf, when Carmen graduates and sends me this office as the minister, she's going to have a legacy. She's going to have the same attitude she had at King's Wharf then as she had. She's going to have the same attitude then that she had now at King's Wharf, bringing along a whole army of other young Bermudians. And so we're going to move forward together. Anyway, how long? You got questions? Oh, Shelley Bay. I said I was going to do that, innit? Okay, so I left Shelley Bay off because we are doing that tonight. That's at 6:30 this evening at Francis Patton. And essentially what we've done, people wouldn't, I don't even want to look back, but it didn't fly last year. We hope tonight's idea flies. But what we've had is input from some of the people in Hamilton Parish about what they would like to see. And we've provided them with some support in terms of being able to do some renderings about what that might look like. And I want to say that, nothing is cast in stone. The problem is that Burch and a few other Bermudians, for them, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so if I see it, I can visualize it. If you tell me, I'm going to struggle. Okay, so that's all we're done. We're coming with pictures tonight, just pictures. And so nothing is cast in stone, and this is a suggestion from some of the residents of Hamilton Parish. And we have some things that we can do irrespective of where they go in this regard, in terms of providing access to the sea for wheelchair-bound and senior citizens, and making it easier to do that. And I think that I'm hopeful that we will get no pushback on that aspect of it regardless. And if that's the case, then we can proceed on that as a matter of course almost immediately, because we have the ability to do that internally as part of what Parks would normally do. But that'll be presented tonight. And then there's some other aspects of it that they've made some recommendations. And we'll see what the people have to say. Just as last year they didn't like some things and we didn't do them, and so we'll see where we go. And that's why it was not included in the list of locations. I actually took it out. It was in there, and I said, no, we're not doing that. Because because we had the experience of last year, I said, no, we already headed down this road in any case in terms of providing some suggestions from folks. So we will separate that one out and do that one as a separate entity. And so the 3 MPs for Hamilton Parish have agreed that that's what we will do. And they've been lobbying their constituents and talking with them. And so we'll present tonight and see where it is that we go at the end of the evening. So 6:30, Francis Patton. I think will be an hour or a bit, not much longer than that. We'll present the items. We'll get feedback from those who attend and wish to contribute, and then we'll go back to the drawing board, or we'll be off to the races, or we'll figure out where it is that we're going to go next.
Well, thank you, Minister. Give me a little bit of clarity on the building behind you. What are we looking at housing once completed?
Once completed, it will not house a court. Right. It will be the building is called the House of Assembly. And so it will house the House of Assembly. And not only the House of Assembly, but you know that the Senate is there now. And so what we will end up with is the Department of the Legislature all of it will be housed in one location, in a proper facility. As an example, you go to any other parliament anywhere in the world, you have facilities for members of the legislature. I mean, we've been having an interesting experience recently where people have been emailing me at parliament.bm. I don't even know where the hell that email address is. And so, and then they forward it to my boss and say, I've been emailing the minister and he didn't answer. Well, no, I wouldn't answer. I don't even know. I think I do now. But I mean, and so that's part of the process, in the sense that, if we are going to mature. Now, there was a report in the media recently about a plan that the PLP had the last time I was in government and the last time I was in this job, I think slightly more than a decade ago, before we started building Dame Lewis. Me, again, just my practical mind, I'm saying, okay, if we're putting, why are we building a building for magistrates' court? Why don't we build a building for the courts and put them all in there? Economies of scale. You then don't have to talk to me about safety of judges and parking and all this other, and separating them from accused and all the rest of it, and duplicating that facility somewhere else. Why not put them all in Dame Lewis, and then you're off to the races? You don't even have to reinvent the wheel about how you provide security for a court. You do it once, and off you go. And I got resistance from 2 people. One I'll name. Well, no, I won't name him because he's dead. But the Chief Justice of the time, people can go look up, objected. And then I got from somebody else involved in the judiciary who tried a trick shot on me. He said, you can't, Brown Evans really was, supreme in the Supreme Court. And so it'll be, disrespectful to name the magistrates' courts after Brown Evans. And I said, I don't think so. First of all, we don't have no building named after. Second of all, if I wait for you people to build your compound, so you have, a Supreme Court compound and you have a damn Lewis, it ain't never going to happen. Because here we are a decade later, and ain't nothing happened. Well, everybody knows what Dame Lewis is, and now people who weren't even born in 2000 when she passed are saying, who is this lady? And why is this building named after her? And so all of the courts were going to go in there, and it was next. Okay? And because we had, at that stage, as I recall, I was even prepared to put another floor under to be able to accommodate, the full accommodation of the judiciary. Anyway, that didn't happen. That's water under the bridge. I'm not looking back at all. But it should be a court building. And so that's where we're headed. Now, it's going to mean that some people, again, it's a sense of entitlement with some people in the civil service think, I'm entitled. No, you're entitled to tools to do your job. This is not your living room. This is not your house. It's not where you have to live. And you have free will. If you don't like the space that's provided for you to do your job, you go get a job somewhere else. And so we will provide accommodation and facilities for the judiciary. They're likely to go back to 113 Front Street, but I'm not. I mean, if people recall, I think we spent about $600,000. Okay, that's me again. I know I'm not supposed to think about money and saving any of it because that's not in our driveway. But we spent about $600,000. We, the government of Bermuda, clearing out that building and cleaning all the files and this and that and the other. And people recall, that for months they had 2 containers out in the parking lot. Anybody who drove by there would know anything, what's going on, and cleaned it out. And they go back into the building, and it's the same problem all over again. And so you are wasting money. That's what you're asking me to do. And as a taxpayer, I've got a serious problem with that. And because I currently have the responsibility to control some of that money, well, guess what? Even my favorite foreigner says, as he told somebody the other day, in my presence, the minister's cheap, And I confess, I plead guilty. I am. I hate wasting money. Everybody knows that I hate wasting money, my own and my own taxpayers' money too. And so we're not going to do that. We're not going to have all singing, all dancing, and all whistles. But we will not jeopardize the administration of justice in the country. And to suggest otherwise is just ludicrous. It just doesn't make any kind of sense to me. And so, no, the court will not be going back into the House of Assembly, and we will be transitioning people out of Daimlers that are not part of the judiciary, and we will provide facilities in that building for the courts of this country. Plain and simple.
Do you see the same amount of courts being available to the judiciary after all said and done?
That's a difficult one to answer. I think that we will provide. Well, first of all, let's be clear. We're never going to have all the courts in Daimlers, right? Because you'll know, much to my chagrin, we have 2 courts in this building. Don't we? We have 2 courts downstairs. 2 commercial courts. And let's also, connect the dots. This government has announced that the Allenhurst building, which is the old Hamilton Police Station building, right, is going to be an arbitration center. Does anybody know what that means? That's almost a judicial function. And so in planning for that, you can accommodate special circumstances and cases as well. They will be adequately housed, just like everybody else in the country, adequately housed. And yeah, it's going to take time. I get that. But we are working on it right now. There's work that's being done already to transition the non-judiciary people out of Daimlers. Now, you think I'm going to get some resistance from some of them? Probably. But we're providing you with space to work. Adequate space to work. And that's our aim for everyone. And so I can tell you the reason why it's taking so long is that I have been resistant and refusing to sign off on moves that are, sort of short-term temporary. Because that's a waste of money too. I need a long-term solution. Now, some of that may be in the private sector for a time. I get that. Until we can transition but at the moment we have, just as we have limited resources in terms of housing, We have limited resources in terms of office space for government. 'Cause look at, I mean, this is not rocket science, not secret. Look around the country and see what we have transitioned out of and condemned or abandoned. Tusa House on Cedar Avenue, Allenhurst down here, the old Hamilton Police Station, and a number of buildings that we've not been able to utilize. And in my book, if you cannot refurbish, the reason why we're refurbishing Allenhurst as opposed to knocking it down, not because Burch decided, you know. Burch said engineers and surveyors go down in and tell me the structural integrity of the building. And if you come back and tell me that it's structurally unsound, I'm going to knock it down. They came back and told me it's structurally sound, solid as a rock. So I'm not going to knock it down. We're going to renovate it. And we're going to fix it so that, you know, it's fit for purpose. But at the moment, we are restricted in terms of our ability to maneuver people around. But, you know, and I get that, you know, people, and let me just address this, because, you know, customs are down in 131 Front Street, and the building's owned by Zane De Silva, and everybody started. And I said, you know, but none of those people on the other side started by friends and family. Because when I looked on the list of buildings that we rent in the country and in the city, and who they're owned by, you don't want to talk about friends and family. You don't want me to go there, because I'm got figures. Decades that we've spent renting from those people, okay? So you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. And they didn't. Because I announced it. Because I don't want nobody saying that they revealed that the building's owned by Zane, a trust managed by, controlled by Zane De Silva and his family. I tell you that. Because I don't have no problem with that, because I think that people who are people, those that are PLP who own buildings, are entitled to get a turn too. And I have no hesitation and make no apologies for saying so and doing so. And I'm not doing it just because it's friends and family. I'll tell you why I'm doing it. Because first of all, it's a newer building than some of these other legacy ones that I'm wasting money on, right? You know where those people, one of the buildings said, I won't call the name of the building, but you know one of the buildings that Customs moved out of to go into that building was a building that at least 40% of the space that the government of Bermuda was paying rent for could not be used. Because the ceiling had fallen in and this was leaking and it was mildew and this and that and the other. And that building actually, I didn't know this part of it when I decided that that's where we would go. But that building is one of the few buildings in this, I wouldn't say this country, but certainly one of the few buildings in the modern era that has some benefits to it that are second to none. As an example, a practical example, some people may remember when Great Things, they struck a pill down Great Things and the Hill City, that building, the people that worked in that building didn't even know that the power had gone off in the rest of the city. Because without any adjustment whatsoever, the generator kicked in and they worked all day. When they came out of the thing, they're like, what's going on? And the rest of the city had been in darkness. But the other aspect of it that I really, really like, and I would like it no matter what building it was in, it would be a selling point for me, is that most buildings where you rent accommodation, you have communal services that you pool and pay based on your square footage, like electricity. So, you know, you rent a 10-story building, you pay your share of your square footage of the total electricity bill. And you know what that mindset is for those people in there? Nobody gives a damn. They leave the lights on and walk on and leave them on. They're paying no mind. In that building, every floor has its own meter. Every floor has, so you control your own electricity bill. So the collector of customs can say, oh, no. Or the controller can say, no, we're wasting money. I can monitor and track and control the amount of electricity that customs alone is using in that building. And so it's practical things that we're doing. And so, yeah, we're going to do some things that folk ain't going to like, but it's not going to be because Zane's PLP. It's going to be because I'm saving money. I'm saving on utilities and resources. Because I'm going into a new building. They don't have none of the challenges. It goes back to the same principle that I used earlier about us actually building.
Student numbers have been talked about over the past few years.
Yes.
Numbers aren't what they used to be.
Yes.
Schools aren't being fully utilized by students. You've mentioned buildings not being worth
Yeah, fit for purpose, yeah.
keeping up. You've been in talks with the Ministry of Education to look at
I can't wait for him to pick one. He knows. Pick one. No, seriously. I mean, and I'm not being flippant. Practical again. We have an issue at the moment at T and Tatum, again. And I have had the discussion today. We have people up there today trying to figure out what the challenges are there and how we fix it long term and fix it. But in that context, so the students were in at Tatum yesterday and they're in at Tatum today, but they're not home. Where are they? Some dispatched to Purvis. Some dispatched to Heron Bay. Some dispatched to Paget. So that tells me that those three schools in particular have space that's not being utilized. Right? If you can take a whole school and relocate them, that means we have surplus resources. And we could do things better in that respect. Now, I get that, there's a whole lot of people that say, I went to Purvis and don't touch my school, and all of what they say. But I would invite them to say, yeah, you went to Purvis, but you know what was important about when you went to Purvis? Not the building. What made an impression on you when you went to Purvis was those teachers who interacted and taught you. That's what made the impression at Purvis. So would it not, don't you think the parents today would not be entitled to the same sort of interaction? Because think about it. If you didn't have to maintain, so we talked about 4 schools, right? Let's say half of them you could do away with because you could adequately accommodate those students somewhere else. You know what that means? First of all, the education maintenance bill for schools, for the 31 schools we have in the country, gone. Secondly, what that means is you can probably raise the standard of education because you need less administration, less bureaucracy, so you can save money, so you could invest that money in maybe more teachers, or maybe, more instruction for students. And so the quality of education, not the facility, well, the facility is going to be sorted, but really the quality of education is going to rise. And you either repurpose those buildings or demolish them. But either way, your costs are going to go down because the air conditioning that you spend on that building, that's obviously going to, cool buildings and rooms that are not being used, gets reduced. The maintenance, all the attendant costs that come along with that sort of thing. And so we really have to look at it, and I think that we have to have a real conversation with folk about how it is that we are going to move forward without stepping on people's, historical and traditional and, nostalgic reminiscences about schools. And let me put down this one. I mean, I have a particular attachment to the high school that I went to, Sand Secondary School. Now we insisted on that school keeping its name, Sand Secondary Middle School. And you know why? Because black people in this country pooled together so that black children could go to school. And to declare my interest, one of them was my great aunt, who brought me into this world. and the 4 other siblings that I have in her house as a midwife. And at one stage mortgaged her home to keep that school open. Okay? And so, but even Sand Secondary School can be up for consideration as far as I'm concerned, because we're talking about people who made that happen. And so you could keep the name. The building, I don't think any of those buildings existed when she actually started the school. You know what I'm saying? And so what I am saying is that we have to get to a point where we do things differently and we'll get a better result. And if the better result is we get better educated children, then there's got to be, nobody can criticize that no matter your political persuasion, I would have thought.
We've touched in the past about reinstating bulk trash pickup. Have you had a chance to look at
Yes,
that?
that's on the agenda for tomorrow. At the moment, we are able to do that on an ad hoc basis. If people call the hustle truck, they'll come and do that. But I think, again, it's about personal responsibility. I heard a story today where at the public wharf in Southampton, somebody's delivering a fridge. A stove. And I'm thinking, seriously? So you'd put it in a truck and you'd drive to the public dock. Why not take it to Tynes Bay? You don't have to pay. And so I'm like, what mentality? And I was furious because the person I was telling, I said, I hope they took out their phone and took a license plate number, because then you actually could, you could make an example of people who just are stupid. We had a taxi driver at Tatum who done the same, and on the school day, drove up and the secretary watched out and said, hey, you can't. He said, I pay tax, I can do whatever the hell I like. She said, oh, you can, huh? Click. Send it to TCD, and they spoke to him and sorted him out. He won't do that again.
You spoke about trash trucks and narrow roads and stuff. In the not-too-recent past, we've had issues of private landowners allowing hedges, trees to hang over, and you were trying to clamp down on that. How's that going?
They're calling their landscapers. So our complaints are less in that regard. They're calling their landscapers as opposed to paying us $1,000 an hour to butcher the hedge, because that's what we're not sending landscapers, but we write to them and we invite them to do that, and then we tell them that if you won't, we will. I would prefer that they did it, but at the same time we just spent about $600,000 per trash truck. I'm not having the windshields bashed on them, in this manner, because people just won't cut their hedges. They won't get their garbage collected. And when they call, I will tell them so myself that, you sort out your issues and then you have service. It really is that simple.
Thank you very much for your time, Colonel.
Okay, my pleasure.